Uh, all right, everyone. So we are back with episode 33 of the Irish Iron podcast. Today's guest is my friend, my fellow competitor, bodybuilder, Taylor, Brian Murphy. Welcome to the show, Brian. And how are we keeping?
Here's all. How are things? Good, man. Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man.
All good, my end. Surviving the lockdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, all's good. All's good, man.
Sweet.
Can't complain. Just been getting through. Been off work for a few months. Training in bits. Training in secret too. Last couple of months.
Sweet.
Training behind closed doors with Mr. Shane Cullen in the Cullen, we're calling it Cullen's Health and Fitness.
Yeah, I've seen what he has.
But yeah, no, all things are good, man.
Sweet. Well, look, I suppose like at the end of the day, like my first encounter, I kind of knew who you were because you were friendly with Conor, and I go back with Conor a few years. Not like we wouldn't be close, but like we know each other through the years, you know, like he competed, I think, a couple of years before me. So I remember, like, I saw you, your first show was my second season competing. So I'd come back after basically 3.5 years of not bodybuilding, and then I came back. And I remember you did a show, and it was the same one, and you placed third, was it? Or was it fourth? In the class.
Yeah, so that 2017 was my first show. It was the RIBBF the Nationals, and I placed third in the under 70 category.
Deadly, yeah. Okay.
Third behind John O'Donnell. John O'Donnell, I don't know whether you know John. John was first, and Alan Keaton was second that year. And then I came in third. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, I suppose like my main thing was like, here's this guy. He's bringing condition. And you know what? It's like there's two kinds of bodybuilder. I kind of fall into, like, admittedly, I kind of fall into this category, and it's the category of, I have genetics. I have reasonably good genetics, and I've always been bet by guys who come in better condition. And you're one of those guys who just nails the condition. So what I want to know is like, what got you into bodybuilding? Because it's like. You came out of nowhere, and I remember.
I'm losing you there, Owen.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry, bud. Can you hear me? Oh, it's frozen, has it? 1 second. There we go. We're back.
Dude, I'm just losing you there with the signal's pretty bad. There's quite a bit of a delay with you there at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's all good now. I can hear you back now again.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what got me into bodybuilding?
Yeah.
It kind of happened by chance, mate. I was never stepped foot in the gym until I was about 23 years old.
No.
And at that, I wasn't going to the gym because I was going to bodybuild. I got a 3-month membership for Christmas. So basically, joined the gym because I got a free 3-month membership. Started training, and the usual story of a couple of the guys in the gym were saying, geez, you're actually improving a lot. You're after putting on a serious size over, say, 6 months, a year in. And there was a couple of guys in the gym, and there was a particular guy, Ger Thorpe. I don't know whether you know Ger. Ger's competed at under 80s. He won under 80s back in, I think, 2015. Ger was in the gym at the time, and Ger was getting ready for a show. And Ger said, look, should be something you should be thinking about it. And yeah, from there, that was a gym in Naas at the time. And Ger actually was moving from that gym to City West. And I don't know whether you remember, but City West back in the day used to be a big bodybuilding hotspot.
Yeah.
And I actually then decided to make that move down from which is a hotel gym in Naas, and I actually moved to City West. And then that move kind of brought me into the whole bodybuilding scene. There was different guys. There was David Keogh was in that gym. There was, I don't even remember the judge, Callan. I cannot pronounce his surname, but Callan. He was. I'm not sure even his home country, but you've probably heard of him. You've probably seen him before. There was some different guys. There was David Zayola. I don't know whether you know him. He's still competing back in Poland now. And yeah, there was just all these guys, and that was from there on. That was me hooked.
Deadly. So I have like, did you start with a coach straight away, or did you kind of do your own thing first? Like,
it was definitely my own thing first. The first time I ever reached out to anybody and got any sort of coaching as regards training was actually Larry Doyle. Yeah, so Larry introduced me to kind of styles of training where tempo was involved and different aspects of training that were completely new to me back then. And that was probably maybe 2016 maybe. And I decided to do my first show then in 2017,
okay,
which I was prepped by Vinnie Crane.
Yeah. And how was that? Like working with Vinny? Like I like Vinny a lot, man. Like Vinny and me. I remember like he was the first guy to kind of break out. Well, he was our first modern IFBB pro. I mean, so like he'll always like have that on him. But like, what was working with Vinny like? Because his training is quite different to what you would be doing now, isn't it? He's a big volume pusher. Or
at the time, yeah. Well, to be fair, at the time, Vinny more looked after my food rather than my training. I sort of was doing my own thing then with the training, but Vinny was looking after food. Working with Vinny was great. He, as you know, as you've seen in 2017, first show got me into condition, and from there, and I was a threat on that day, and coming out of nowhere. So yeah, no, working with Vinny went really well. Really, when you look back.
Yeah, deadly. And I suppose after that, like, I would kind of know your training now because you've hooked up with Locke, and like you've been training with Locke for, I'd say the last good few years now. Like 2 years.
Yeah, we've a couple of years, maybe. Oh, yeah, we've definitely 3 years behind me with Locke now at the moment. Yeah.
And like what?
And still working with Locke.
Deadly. So I mean, like, what would you say, like? Because obviously the main thing, like in bodybuilding in Ireland, like there's gonna be the few genetically gifted guys who are big dudes. Like I mean, like we've all come up against them. Like I came up against fucking Giovanni. Like he bet me because he was huge. And then like obviously like in like even like I mean that's really the only time I've really been like out muscle. But apart like, and then I was always told condition wins shows, but I've actually I've never worked with a coach really except for Christian. So like you done your first show, but you did it with a coach. So like I want to know what your experience was, because my first prep, like I was 18, I did it myself, and it was messy, like, but like you got into it the right way. So like, did you know anybody like when you were prepping? Were you friends with Conor and stuff at this point, or did you make friends with that kind of crew after you did your first show? Like that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, I suppose.
Yeah, mine and Conor's relationship kind of grew. Would have been after that, all right.
Yeah.
But for me, the big thing for me was that I was at that stage. I was in the Monasterevin. So this is a couple of years on. I'd been to City West and I'd done a stint in a Killashee in Nace, which was a hotel gym. And at this stage, I joined Monasterevin. So that meant, you've been to Monasterevin and you've experienced it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So for me, being there and being around, it was, you got Vinny, you had Keith, you had just the different guys, and they were all just bodybuilding lovers and obviously top competitors. So for there it was easy because you had those guys.
Just 1 second, it's just breaking up there. Just gonna turn on some other Wi-Fi instead.
No worry, don't.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Perfect. Deadly stuff. So I think we're back in the game now. Yeah, perfect. That's a bit more fluid. So yeah, what can you just reiterate what you kind of said there? Because it kind of just broke up on me there. But
yeah, sure, yeah. So it all went so easy because at that stage I had joined Monasterevin. So therefore, like I had everyone around me. I had Vinny was there, you had Keith, you had Glenn, you had everybody who was already a big part of the industry, already top competitors advising me. So therefore, it just made perfect sense. Vinny was working in the gym at the time, and therefore it was just an easy for me that he could be there to look at me, see me on a regular basis, and it just all fit and made sense at the time.
Yeah, deadly. And I suppose like coming into like, what did you weigh before you started training? Like, were you like chubby or were you skinny or like what was what was your starting point? Because like obviously you've added some tissue, so like what was your starting point?
It's going breaking up a little bit there, dude. If you don't mind saying that again.
Yeah, no worries. What was your starting point? So like before you started training, were you overweight or were you underweight? Were you normal? That kind of thing.
Like. When I first started training, I done a consultation in the original gym that I started in when I got that 3-month free membership. And obviously, when you do a consultation, they weigh you. I actually weighed 57 kilos at the age of like 22, 23. So I was a small guy. Yeah, very small. Like I'm obviously not a small guy in height as it was, but I was skinny, man. Yeah, very, very skinny.
Yeah. So you're going against your natural body type as it is.
Oh, dude, yeah, fighting it every day. Every day. If I don't eat, it's going. It's not staying there.
Yeah. So I mean, what are you up to now? Like, I mean, like, are you still aiming to go into the under 75s, or do you think you'll do?
No, I'm be gone from that on. Yeah, where you gone? Yeah, I'll be sitting at the moment now. I'm just kind of at a cruise phase. I'm not currently training at the moment because I'm the last few weeks with me back to work, till the gym's open. I'm sitting about 85 kilos.
Sweet, deadly. Yeah,
so, yeah, it's pretty solid. I'm pretty lean for that as well. So, not overly fat or anything. So it's pretty good at the moment, in fairness.
Deadly. So like would you say you'll do the under 80s next, or what would you do?
It's hard to know. I'm definitely not going to be doing anything. I'm looking at maybe the autumn in 2022.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm not going to say I'm going to be under 80 yet. There's definitely a lot of size to be added before I say I'm going to be definitely under 80. At the moment, I'd definitely be under 75. But then there's a whole year left. I've had a whole year left of an off season as such.
Deadly. Well, that's cool, man. Because it's like, so, I've always said to people, like, it's really hard to pick. I've never done a weight class, so it's like I've never had to make weight for anything. I've always just done height classes or junior. So it's like,
yeah.
So to me, I'm kind of like, and there was no reason for me not to do it. I think I was I'm not, like, I'm 5'5", and I think we're the same height, give or take. Like,
yeah, because we were both class 4 in with PCA in 2019, so we're about the same height.
Yeah, brilliant. Because like that's like an all class 4. Because like I remember that's under 165 centimeters. So I remember at the PCA finals, like they actually did measure us, and there was a few guys who like they were wearing real baggy tracksuits and they're kind of just bending their knees just a little bit to make it
No
into
way.
class, man. But they'd let you get away with it, but like I think it was like we'd be legitimately in class 4 anyway, so it was fine.
In 2019, I actually entered myself before they checked my height. I had myself in class 3, thinking I was a bit taller than I was. But then when they checked my height, it turns out I'm actually shorter than I thought all along. I was giving myself a few inches, man.
Yeah. No, I was always short, so it's like, but for me, even as a junior, because it's interesting because you came into bodybuilding at the stage where like I think you have I'm 26, so I think you have a couple of years on me anyway.
Yeah, dude, I'm 29 now.
Yeah. So it's like my first experience with bodybuilding it was very different. It was I didn't have a coach. I wasn't surrounded by a group of people like you were who knew what they were doing. I had Christian McAlinden stepped in about 4 weeks out from my first show because we were friends. And it was a weird one. So I kind of made friends with people then and stuff like that. But it was crazy because there was no weight cut, right? It was all juniors. So it's like there were some big tall dudes and
Yeah.
and then when I came back, it was the same thing, competing against like Mark Hodson, who I think was like he was 100 kilos or something, and then you had like all the other guys. But for me, I've always just felt more at home with the high classes. Like with the weight classes, though, I do feel it forces you to come in shape because if you're on that limit,
Yes, yeah.
if you're on that limit, I do think like most of the guys who do the weight classes tend to be a bit more sharp than guys who just do height. Like that's what I've noticed with the two organizations. But I mean, that's just my take on it. Like,
yeah, look, for me personally, it feels like it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
You know, there could be a guy at our height that's sitting at 100 plus kilos on stage at our height, you know. But yeah, so for me, basically with the weight class, it just means you're the same weight as everybody else. So now it's a matter of who has carrying the most muscle for that weight and who is in best condition on the day. You know, and that's what it comes down to. And I think it's just a level playing field.
Yeah. Would you do a PCA show next year, do you think, or are you gonna just go for nationals? Or
I'm not nothing on PCA. I actually really enjoyed the show we done in Galway that time. But I'm an IFBB fan. I'm an on the IFBB side, man. For me, if it's going to be autumn next year, it'll definitely be nationals with potentially a couple of shows, maybe internationally, as in maybe over in the UK and stuff. I don't even know there's no calendar yet, so I've no clue. I have no idea. Just we're definitely going to jump into 1 or 2 shows, and throw my hat in and see how we get on.
So it's like with working. Let's go into a bit of like more your training and stuff as well. So like obviously because you're fighting, you know, like I started, like I'm quite lucky. Like I started at 55 kilos myself, but yeah, once everything's in click, I can grow. I'm actually going to be working with Mark Getty going forward. Once the gym's open, I've never working with Christian was great, but like I want to hear like what is working with Locke like, because I did consider him as a coach, but there's just a few things I'm a bit more like what's your experience with Locke like? Because I know he's very meticulous with everything. Like he's very on the ball. Like so.
Yeah. So the situation with Locke is, I suppose myself and Conor are quite privileged because Locke doesn't necessarily take on clients for prep. It's not something he does. I think personally he invests so much into it emotionally that he doesn't like taking on people for prep. So I think me and Conor have been an exception over the past few years. So therefore our relationship has been pretty tight knit. He's obviously our coach, but he's obviously a personal friend as well now at this stage. So we've been very lucky to have that sort of close relationship with him. And our experience through prep was obviously really enjoyable because back in 2019, obviously Conor prepped as well. Yeah. So it was like, when Locke came to see us in the gym on a Saturday, he was seeing both of us. He was checking out, we're posing for him. Both of us were like, it was very enjoyable because it was done with your friends as well as, he wasn't only your coach, he was doing it with your friends as well, So, and as regards his coaching, he's just on the money really with everything. He knows me now. He knows my body now. So therefore, it's just going to be easier going forward. Like what you're talking about, PCA for us before nationals was slightly done as a warm up, really. So he just wanted to test me out and see how the carb up went and etc. And then we had that few weeks then to really peel it back. So yeah, we're still learning because 2019 was the only shows we have done.
Yeah.
And I feel sometimes you need to give a coach a bit of time to get your body. Like a lot of guys jump from coach to coach, but for me, that's a very hard job for any coach because every prep is different and everybody's body is different. So I think it just with Locke, he started to understand us, and going forward, hopefully it's going to help next time around.
Oh, dude, for sure. And going back on that, because there's definitely a few guys doing a few pro qualifiers that have swapped coach every fucking show that they haven't managed to win their pro card on, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Jesus, it's like it's very weird for me because I came up, I didn't have a phone when I started bodybuilding, so it's like I really had to learn on the cuff. So when when Christian prepped me, it was very, like you said, me and him had worked a full off season together. That's when we had trained and stuff. So I felt it went well up to a point, but I think what I kind of learned was there was two factors that came into play which didn't work well for me. The fact that he's a very good friend of mine, so not that I didn't push myself, but I think neither of us wanted to ruin our friendship, and it was kind of it was a weird situation because I don't think he pushed me as hard as he could have, and I followed his plan to a T. So he actually told me after I only did the one show with him and I placed third, and I remember he told me after, it's like, yeah, I kind of we just wanted to get the top 3 finish and then go to the PCA finals and just come and peel. But obviously, I stopped working with him after that. So you're perfectly right in saying that you need to give a coach time, because if I hadn't given Christian the time, we'd worked together a full year and a half before we did the prep. But I think he's one of my best friends. I love him, phenomenal bodybuilder, but it's one thing I'll never do is do a prep with somebody who doesn't have the time for it, because he did it as a favor. So next time I was like, I'm just going to pay the money and actually get a coach who has the time to do it.
Yeah.
It's hard, man, because it's like if you were getting prepped by Conor, it'd be the same thing. So I was kind of like, I didn't want to say no. So I finished the prep. And we had all this talk, me and him, and we're still very close. I only saw him the other day. But going with Locke I was going to go with Locke. But the only thing that kind of turned me off it was I like doing my own training, and what he offered to me was it's the full package. I kind of just would be looking for more of a diet advice, and then I do my own training.
Sure, so yeah.
With yourself, it's all done, isn't it? It's all independent what you need. How do you find that as being? Because what kind of training?
It's obviously we call the shots a bit with our training as well. Locke will send us over ideas on basically different movements that he feels by looking at us. So say whether it's an area of and our back needs to be improved, or need more lats or whatever it may be, he would base a session around that. So yeah, although he does have an input that way, where we're still free to kind of do the sessions and whatever reps, exercises, etc. we want to do, we will do them as well, you know. So it's not a case of here's the plan, you have to follow everything here and that's just it. It's we hop and change it around to whatever suits our needs, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. So I suppose, like, what would you take? Like, obviously you train hard. I've seen you train. I've trained with you. I know who you're training with as well. So, like, I know the training intensity is there. But I mean, there's a lot of guys like just being real. Like, at the end of the day, what wins shows is it's work. But I call it. It's like you can train hard, but like you have to be smart about it. You know, it's like if you don't know what you're doing, you can train as hard as you want, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's really hard to get in shape. So, like, did having a coach, did your training intensity like stay the whole way through prep? Like when you were on the real low calories, like how did you manage all that?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I'm a believer in pushing it to the end. I mean, if we never dropped off weight because it was the right thing to do. We dropped it off because maybe we didn't have it in the tank. But we would always push to the absolute limit. So whether you were, you know, benching 140 kilos 12 weeks out, but the body only allowed 100, you know, 3 weeks out, you'd still push that 100 as much as you would with the 140 in the off season, say.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel to maintain that tissue, I think training the same way you do in the off season versus prep helps maintain that tissue. Changing the style, I personally don't think it helps.
No, you're right. You're right. And the reason I know you're right is because the first show I did in 2019, I trained the same way as I did in the off season because I still worked with Christian, so the training was pretty much the same the whole way through. So I remember even looking at the pictures and like, look, I wasn't peeled by any means. It was weird. Like my body doesn't react to carbs well when I'm lean. Like it just spills really badly. So like every single show I did a carb up. I didn't do a carb up for the last one and it was great. So like this one I did a carb up and it was like, what was I told? It was like the typical, like, you know, when you're peeled, you can eat anything and you kind of just fill up. Like it doesn't,
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't that peeled. So what happened was I took a Diazide the night before, woke up and it was like have pancakes and all that kind of stuff, have lots of salt, and I spilled over. But the one thing that got me the third place placing was the training had stayed the same, so I was big, you know. I mean, that got me my place.
Yes, yeah.
And then I find like if you get that combination, like when you're peeled, like that size, like even just the density has a look to it, man. It's like even with the glutes, I tell people this with the glutes, like you don't get those just from getting in condition. You have to know how to train hard to develop like a good lower body. Like it's simple as.
Yes, yeah.
So
would you agree though that I think for you going forward, and if you don't mind me saying this, that I'm looking at you from the outside in, right? It's all there, muscles there, everything. But you've always failed, as you said, you've always failed to bring that condition. Yeah. Like for me, you're definitely going to consider working with a coach and you know, 100%. Letting someone call the shots to dial you in.
I need it.
Yeah.
And the reason being is like I'm proud of the fact that like I prepped myself. Like as a junior, I prepped myself and like I did well. Like but it was weird because I was still young, so it's like my body, I could kind of do certain things and I wasn't even taking that much, man. I was taking like next to nothing. It was great. And I was like looking back, I was arguably as lean. I wasn't as big, but I was as lean as I was for some of the shows when we like in 2019, but or leaner, but I wasn't as big. So I think the issue with me, yeah, is just keeping the head screwed on. like, I know what to do. Look, I know how to diet. I obviously know how to diet. It's just, I don't want to think about it. I just want somebody to do it for me this time. And I said, Mark Getty up north, he's a freak. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to him, and I think it's once the gym's open, I'll actually be managing a gym full time. So I just said, I'm just gonna let him pay for me. I'm just gonna pay him because I'm gonna be too busy to think about my own stuff anyway.
Yeah. But I feel I think a lot of people, like, when you do pay somebody, you then, it automatically, mentally, you're paying for something. You're going to work. You're going to do it then because you're paying for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's half the battle.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, let's talk about the shows a bit, like in Ireland and stuff. And, like, did you watch New York Pro? I assumed you did. You saw Blessing.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Now, like Blessing's got a lot of fucking hate from that. Like, it's like, I'm of two trains of thought. Like, the Americans are praising his structure and everything, and like, he's phenomenal. Like, he's the best we've got at the moment. But, like, it's a weird one. It's because if he wasn't like talking all the hype, everyone would have been like top three, like, well done. But because he talked all that hype, everyone's kind of just shat all over him. I feel kind of bad for him in that sense. But I mean, he looked great.
Yeah.
Like, well, he looked good. I mean, he looked really good the first show, and then he kind of spilled or something.
Yeah, he was a little flat the first show. Like, look, I'm not gonna stand here and say I'm an absolute expert or anything. Like, I mean, I've done 3 shows in my life, Blessings and IFBB Pro, competing in the open class. Like, so I have no right to, I probably have no right to comment. But as a fan and lover of the sport, I mean, yeah, look, he was for me a little flat the first day out in Indy. And then obviously, if you've seen his crazy carb up, I don't know if you've seen the video, he'd done an absolute crazy carb up for New York, and simply he spilled over. And it's as simple as that, really. And I think all the hate and the messages and all the people giving him all the shit online, I mean, half of them aren't bodybuilding lovers.
No.
I'm real lovers, and I just like, they love social media and the hype and all, they're just jumping on the bandwagon. But peel it all back, those people don't really love bodybuilding.
But what I saw was,
so for me,
there was a
Blessings.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, there was a lot of Irish hate from. Like, I was seeing, like, there was a lot of guys like we would know, like, and I'd follow, and they were saying like he turned up worse than he did when he was in the RIBBF, and I was like, I'm kind of like, are you guys smoking crack? You just placed top 3 against guys who would make any one of us look like a baby. It's like he came 6th in the New York Pro. It's like, it's 6th in the New York Pro. It's not 6th in class 4 in the Mr. Cork. It's a different level. So it's like,
yeah. So, like, all these people that are giving the hate and are talking shit, I mean, they're not qualified to. They don't have the right to. Yeah. Look, as a rookie season, I think he's pulled the plug and he's not doing Cali, so I think his season's finished. As a rookie season, he should go away with his head held high and be very happy about it, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. I mean, my take on it is this, man. It's like, people think like he hasn't been training to compete for a long time. Like, he had no aspirations to compete. Once he turned pro, he just held that pro card. He wasn't going to compete. And then even when, like, he I think this will make him kind of take it a bit more seriously on the bodybuilding side as opposed to the social media side. Like, I think that's it. Like, I'd say now he'll really knuckle down a bit, and I'd say next year we'll see a dangerous Blessing. Like, he wasn't out muscled. I was like, his frame was, he was taller than most of them.
Yeah, structurally, he's probably put together better than a lot of them. He was just lacking in some areas. Really. He's quite. I think his lower lats are a little bit from the front. Could be, obviously that's how they insert. But there could be a little bit more lower lat for me at the front. His quads aren't there yet. You know, maybe his legs in general seem to be not there yet. And I'm only saying this comparing to the top IFBB pros he stood against. Like it's evident that they're not there yet. But Blessing's still 29, 30.
I think he's 29.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's not even nowadays. There's calling it your peak of their bodybuilding career, kind of that 35-ish mark. So he's not even there yet. You know, I mean, and as far as the social media side of it goes, I don't see why he should stop that. The man's making more money than any of the bodybuilders on the circuit at the moment. And he's placing high. He's placing well in the shows that he just in his rookie season. He's absolutely dead right in what he's doing.
Yeah. And like talking about that kind of thing, like I suppose like the main thing, like he was kind of the first guy. He turned pro just as the split happened. So I remember, because I remember the first show I watched.
Keep talking. I'm just going to turn on a light here. 1 sec.
Yeah, no worries. So like for anyone watching, like the IFBB, obviously there was back in the day, like obviously when I started out, man, there was obviously, there was NABA, there was the RBBF, and that was it. I mean, I think in 2017, PCA was around, but it was only a year old, so I didn't do it. I didn't know about it, I was kind of like, I didn't think it was going to grow as big as it did, because a lot of organizations have tried to make shows and have failed, but the PCA has blown up. So I suppose like before it did blow up, the two big granddaddy shows were you either went for the NABA sword or you went to the RBBF and you had your go at the Europeans. You would get qualified to do the Arnolds. You get qualified for any of the Diamond Cups. And back then, all those, like I think if you won the Europes, you got a pro card. And I think if you won the Diamond Cups, you got a pro card. And the Worlds, you got a pro card as well. So like the RBBF really was great. I actually quite enjoyed it, but it had the monopoly, and NABA had the universe and the world. So like you always had these two. It was crazy. It's like but as a junior, I did them all. Like I didn't mind. Like, but I can totally understand why people would stick with one. Like, I mean, personally, on my take, I just like the sword. I just want to get that sword. So I was like, I'll win. I want to win.
Yes, yeah.
And do the universe. I've always wanted to do the universe. That's a dream for me, to do the universe, because NABA was my first show I watched. It was the Worlds in 2012. But with your first show, like you probably want to do the Europeans and stuff and like test your metal there, or do you want to?
Yeah. For me, I'm definitely team RIBBF. Where I know you're personally. I think you're that NABA route, and that's just personal. For me, yeah, I'm definitely more on that RIBBF route of things. And from going forward, the Europeans is certainly something that I'd love to do. Just from a simple aspect, and it's kind of an easy way to describe it to you. I'm a pretty just normal country lad, and if I was at a family gathering and I said I was with my family and I was talking to them about bodybuilding and my next show, and I said to them I was going to do a two bro show in the UK, that would absolutely go over their heads and they would have no clue what I was talking about. So, but if I turned around to family, my grandfather, whoever, and said, I'm actually going to represent Ireland in the Europeans, whether it be bodybuilding or playing chess or, do you know what I'm saying? Whatever it may be, they would relate to that. So for me, there's just that's something on my bucket list of shows to do, because I feel I take big pride in representing my country doing it.
Of course. Yeah. And I mean, like a lot of great guys take that route as well. I mean, like Conor's done it, Mark has done it. I think Blessing did it. I mean,
Blessing did it. Yeah. I mean, look at Vinny. Vinny was European champion.
Yeah.
I
mean, the guy who, when I first competed, the guy who won the juniors back then, it was under 21s back then. He kind of won everything in the juniors in Ireland that year. He's disappeared now, like he doesn't bodybuild anymore, but he did the Europeans. And this is how I knew the standard was really good at the Europeans, because he came seventh in his class. The juniors were divided up into weight classes at the Europeans. We don't have enough guys here to even do that. So it's like, do you think like going to the Europeans because it's in a weight class, you have a good chance? Like I think it puts you at that level playing field if you bring your yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to be sit here and say I'm cocky or anything, or sound cocky or or whatever. But yeah, look, next as this off season is gone, and how my body's starting to change, and that tissue that I needed in the areas that I was missing, I'm being very confident going into the 2022 season. On really am, going for gold in everything I do. But to be honest with you, but just talking about Europeans, just big shout out to everybody that's actually just probably on their way back. They had a good showing over there. I think they came 9th out of 20 something countries. With the placings where they all add up, I think they were 9th overall. So yeah, it was positive enough for them over there. And in fairness,
yeah, I was shocked it went ahead full stop. Like when I saw that post, I was like, I was shocked it was on, because Europe has just been shut. Then I realized it's Spain. Spain is open again with the gyms and stuff. So
yes,
it's just a case of getting over. But like the only, like as I said, like I mean the only like thing I suppose, like you could have gone, but like you chose not to. And do you think it was a smart call?
yeah.
And like, was it time? It's just you didn't have the time.
For me, I was with COVID anyway. You know, gyms being closed. If I couldn't have gave 100% to a prep, I just felt like there was no point in even considering it. I didn't even know anything about it till about the end of February. I got an email, and that was the kind of first. I didn't even know it was going ahead. So at that stage, anyway, the end of February, there was no way I was going to turn around a sort of a 10-week prep. No, just not. It wouldn't be my way of thinking. I know it could be done, and people have done it, but for me, I prepare to fail. To be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people this, like, the problem Irish bodybuilding has is this: a lot of guys like are prep bodybuilders. Like they don't do off seasons. Like there's a lot of guys who don't really improve. They don't really grow. I mean, they come in great shape, but they look the same every year. And like,
yes, yeah.
But I think like taking that year off, like I mean, I tell people this, like I was devastated. Like I was telling people after NABA, I remember like Jesus, I remember it was really bad. I remember the day before, 3 days before, Tommy was like, because he trains out of Raw, he works there. So he was like, I'll have a look at you, make sure you're on point. I posed for him, and he's like, yeah, just come in like real dry, and you'll place, like you'll be second, or you might be Billy. Like he was like, you'll be up there. And then he's like, eat a little bit of rice. What I do is I end up eating like, I think like a couple of bagels. It didn't go overboard, but I think I ended up taking like 2 Lasix over the period of like the night before the morning off. So I just retained all my water. It was really bad. So I think like going like that was my last experience in NABA, and I wanted to come in 2020 and win the class, at least like class 3. And with the shows being off, like I definitely think for me it was probably a good mental break. Did you feel you needed a break from the bodybuilding a bit, like as well, or
yeah? See, the thing about it is, right, a lot of guys compete yearly, in my opinion, because they stay relevant that way. Social media obviously is playing a factor. These guys, whether if they have decent social media following, it pays their bills to be in shape, to be seen, to be competing, and to kind of be competitive year round, in my opinion. For me, I'm probably not great at social media. I don't post often. I probably should post a lot more on. But for me, it's about progression, and I feel personally I need, I done the nationals and won the nationals. you know, we looked at what was good and what wasn't good back in my physique then after that and addressed it. And now we're moving forward. And those are areas that were weak then are not going to be weak when I come back on stage in 2022, that's for sure.
So like what areas did you want to bring up? Like what would you say your weak points were that you worked on?
For me, my back was an area that was, it was very shallow. Like it just needed, long story short, just missing that thickness, man. So yeah, my back was an area that really, really needs to come on. It's coming there. It's definitely coming. It's never going to be where you really want it to be, because that's just bodybuilding. And we're never happy, but it's definitely coming. My hamstrings also, from the rear especially, needed that bit of thickness coming through. So there are two areas that we've been concentrating on and hitting pretty hard. But I don't know if you remember, like, so my glutes are quite dominant. This is obviously some jokes after nationals about my glutes, because my glutes, in fairness, we came in peeled. Yeah. But they're definitely overpowering my hamstrings and even my back, you know. So I need to catch up on them.
Like, what do you think it was? Like, was it from like squats or just like, I mean, genetics? I mean, like some people I feel overdeveloped the glutes just because. I think it's I think it's crazy. It's like I know some people who can squat a ton of weight, and you wouldn't really do a lot of free bar stuff, would you? You'd kind of do a mix of stuff, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'd be with. See, the problem with the free bar stuff on is we're very blessed in the Gym Monasterevin to have, you know, all the best type of machines, man. And you've been there, you've seen it. You know, we've got our arsenal strength pendulum, we've got our hack squat, we've got our life fitness leg presses, our hammer strength. So we're absolutely blessed that we don't have to put our bodies through that danger of that free bar when we can get the same benefit without being in those machines, you know.
No,
especially on the heavyweights, you know.
100%. Like I definitely think, like I tell people this. If you can do a free bar exercise and it benefits you more than it, you know, if there's no danger to a person, like if it suits someone, like I'll tell people this, I squat up until maybe 4 weeks out just because when the waist tapers in, I just can't do it as much. I've never had issues, but I know some people who would genuinely be at risk when they're like doing a squat, like they just don't have the mobility for it. Maybe it doesn't suit their biomechanics, but they do it because they think they have to do it. Like I tell people this all the time. I tell people don't train the way I train because it's so geared towards like it's funny. Like it's really funny. It's like I've been training for what, like 11 years now, and it's like as a bodybuilder, so it's like what I do won't work for a lot of people because it's just my own like methods for me. But if I was training somebody and they grew from a chest press machine as opposed to using a bar, I'd be like, just you use that chest press. Like you think it was a stigma? Like I definitely think it was a stigma of people who didn't want to stray from one end, like they wanted to be hardcore. And I'm like, there's hardcore, but then there's like just not, you know, it's not correct training, I suppose.
Yeah, sure, yeah, but I mean, so it comes down to different things. For me, it's about finding movements you love to do. You know, so if somebody loves to squat, by all means, you squat. So like it's like you're saying about trespass machine versus a free bar. I love the incline barbell. Yeah. So I want to have an incline barbell in my program. You know what I'm saying? So like it's also we do it because we enjoy it. So no point having movements in you don't enjoy, as far as I'm concerned. You want to have the movements in you like and have fun doing and want to progress on.
100%, man. 100%. Now that's a great way. That's a great way to look at it.
You're freezing on me there, Owen.
Yeah, no worries. We're back. So like training with Conor, man, like he's a strong dude. That pushes you obviously a lot. So like
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So like what kind of rep range would you be training in? Like, would you be like a higher volume guy, like in the sets, or would you kind of do more sets, or is it more?
Yeah, it's very mixed. It's very mixed. There's different stimuluses in all the time, which we use rest pause, we use like muscle rounds, we have straight sets, we have heavy sets and deload sets. Yeah, everything's just regurgitated, man. Everything is, it's nothing, we've not come up with anything ourselves. It's stuff that's been going for years. And we just like to mix it all together. But everything's pretty heavy, man. Always pretty heavy.
Yeah.
You know, anyone in the IRC knows Conor, and Conor lifts heavy. So therefore, man, I'm gonna have to try keep up, you know.
Man, it's crazy. It's like I remember. I think I was training with Connor and what's his name? Can't remember. I was training with Connor anyway, and I remember it's like for me, it's usually I'm the guy who's the strong guy. Like I'm usually like, and then I train with Christian. So like my equivalent was when I trained with Christian, he was like yourself. He couldn't do. He didn't do free bar stuff. He didn't do squats. Like me and him would train quite differently. But every time I trained with him, I grew. Like I grew. It was all that muscle rounds. It was lots of time under tension stuff. Like the leg training I did was completely revamped. You know, it was basically leg press, like just variations on leg press, and I just did squats because I like to do it. But I think the biggest change that people need to understand that, like, what's really going to make your body progress is you need to understand that, like, look, you can get really strong in a movement, but if you're not growing from the movement, you know, it's not going to benefit you in any way. Like, I used to bench press for about flat bench press without incident for 8 years, and now I don't do it anymore. So it's like, didn't necessarily make me grow as a great bencher, but you know, do you feel like because you started with a coach straight away, like you started with your first show with Vinny, you started with Locked In after that, like did you skip the bullshit? Like did you kind of just get right, like your training is kind of like
Yeah, look, I had a little bit of bullshit early days in the hotel gym that I joined. Like, I mean, you know, like any young guy going into the gym, you know, you're lifting weights. Was I doing it correctly? Probably not. But we all live and learn. And everybody who's been to a gym has made those mistakes, and corrected them over time. For me, yeah, I was probably lucky. I didn't have social media now, but just the fact that bodybuilding was probably after growing in 2015, 16, 17, and there was obviously guys in the gyms who were already bodybuilding, it helped a lot. It absolutely helped a lot. Look, I have a really good circle, and I'm around really good guys, and I'm pushed all the time, man, you know. Whether it's Conor, like obviously Locke coaching me, you obviously got the Gym Monasterevin, Glenn, then you've got Shane, you know. I'm blessed with those kind of guys around me, and that are on such a high standard that it pushes me down.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I suppose like do you like going forward, like I mean, who do you think, like I mean nationals is, I think the PCA is going ahead this October. I saw him at the Mr. Cork has been announced now, and I think I did hear like that Paul is going to announce an ABBA date as well for this year as well.
Cool, yeah, very good.
But like I won't be doing it, but like I assume like there's a few guys who are going to be competing. I mean, there's a few guys who've gone abroad. I mean, Brian Ward went abroad there. He looked really good. I think.
Yeah, Wardy, in fairness, just shout out to Wardy. After his injury, I know all about that injury, going obviously experiencing it with Conor and seeing Conor going through it. So I can relate to Wardy for his turnaround, and what he's achieved after it now is insane. He's even managed to bring his leg better than they were previous, in my opinion, which, you know, after an injury like that. So hats off to Wardy.
Yeah, nuts. I mean, but going forward, man, into October, who do you think is going to be the front runner? I think Brian Hickey's going to be doing it. I think Brian Ward is going to give it a go as well. Don't really know anyone who's actually competing in October. It's a weird one. Like usually at this point, like,
that's an interesting one there now. The two lads, you know, obviously Hickey has been a massive servant to Irish bodybuilding, and always brings it in condition wise. And obviously Wardy up the north he's the shredder, man. That's what they call him, the shredder. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for me though, and I'm going to be out straight about it. I feel like muscle wise, they're both going to bring condition, but I have to say I think Wardy's just going to out muscle Brian when it comes to is it PCA I think they're doing.
Yeah.
And I love both guys, and I've massive respect for both of them. But I think, as a bodybuilding fan, I think Wardy's definitely going to out muscle Brian.
Yeah.
Actually, well, Brian Hickey. Sorry, they're both Brian.
Yeah.
all the Brians in bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's a weird one, man. It's like it's so funny. I tell people this all the time. Like it's a very tight. It's a small community, so it's like it's really funny. I remember in 2013 I did my shows. I kind of stayed away then. Like I didn't watch any of the shows in person in that period. So it's like there's 3 years. It's just training, So like people knew who I was, just like who I'd been like just from the scene. But I remember I did a video in 2017 and it was the top 10 best Irish bodybuilders in the country at the time. Got a lot of hate, got a lot of flack, but it got like a couple of thousand views. It got some traction. And I remember it's like you didn't have social media, as you said. And like people didn't know who I was because I'd stayed away for so long, except for like Tommy and Brian and whoever else. So when you came in and you did your first show and you looked as good as you did, what kind of reaction did you get? Like, what was your first experience of the show scene like? Was it good? Like, was it positive as a whole?
Yeah, do you know what, man? I really loved it. I loved it, and I wouldn't have said anything bad about anybody on that day because, I went backstage very nervous, as you would be, not knowing too many guys. I know obviously Vinny was able to get backstage, but after that, like there was just a couple of guys. I don't know, Gav O'Leary from Cork, and even I competed against two really great guys, Alan Keaton and John O'Donnell. And John is from Naas, where I'm sort of I've been I'm close to there and kind of grew up around Naas, so I knew John. And then those guys made me feel very, very welcome backstage. That first day they had already been competed a few times, so knew what the story was, and it was they're all mates now for life, like.
Yeah.
That's whatever about the competitive side of dieting, and you want to win and all the rest. You're making friends from this, and that's why I love to. I'll always want to push it on anybody. Like if anyone asks me about their son joining the gym or whatever, whether it's not even to get into body, but just joining the gym and that circle and kind of this bodybuilding in general, and just everybody in my life now are all my friends because of bodybuilding. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, I've been a weird one, man. It's a weird one for me because the first time I competed, nobody from that show is like in my class is still competing anymore. Like I'm the only one who's still around, except Captain Byrne. He's still around, but the rest aren't. And then when I did 2017, obviously I met Mark Hodgson, and guys like that. But the thing is, I was kind of more aware of like the guys who were older than me. So it's like Christian, Blessing, Connor. There was a few other guys back then, like Ian Byrne. Obviously, Shane Cullen and me are close. Like,
yeah, I'd love to see Ian back actually.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Ian back.
Well, Ian McGarry was a guy who I've always.
Oh yeah.
But Ian Byrne, I think he just had a few health conditions. I think that was it more than anything.
Yeah. We'd love to see him back though. Yeah, he's a good bodybuilder, man. Good guy.
Good guy. But it's mad because the scene changes, but I think a lot of it is people aren't patient. Like, I mean, people aren't willing to put in the time to get the placing. Like, people think it's an instant win, And as funny as it is, because I haven't won anything yet, I know when I win something, it's going to shut a lot of people up. And it's going to, because it's a weird one for me. I remember the first show I did in 2019. Tommy was judging it, so he was like, "Yeah, if you come in peeled, you'll win it." And I was just like, "Fuck," because I knew I knew I wasn't peeled by the time the show was around, so I was just like, "Fuck, he's gonna really penalize me now," because it's not as if I was coming in peeled and placing third. I'm coming in off and placing third. But I think you have to fuck up. I think you have to fuck up. And
Yeah, it's all learning curve.
yeah, but I suppose like with yourself, you deserve you like when you kind of you didn't win straight away. So when you won, like does that kind of are you gonna stick with like does that qualify you now like for future Europeans or does that mean you have to re-qualify like if you were to go?
I'm not 100% sure on. As far as I was aware, winners of classes were automatically qualified for the Europeans. Now I know Europeans just gone. There was definitely some. There wasn't. There was only one person in the overall with me in 2019, which is Igor, which is I'm not sure. Don't ask me his surname, but he's a judge. You know him anyway.
Yeah, he trains in Raw.
Yeah. So like, I mean, he was in the overall with me in 2019. So I mean, he was the only one that sticks out. Now, as far as I'm aware, second and third placings could also go to Europeans as well. But I think back in the days, anyway, it was the winners. They were paid for, and then second or third had the option of going and paying for themselves. I think.
Yeah.
Now, that could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's fairly accurate.
Yeah, because I know in NABA for fact, if you win, you don't have to compete again at home. You're automatically qualified for future universes and worlds. So like, I'm like that. That's the main reason I was like, I'd like to win something in NABA because I know I can just focus on the universe of the world.
Yeah.
But but that's the only reason, really. I mean, like, I think back, I used to love the RBBF back in the day because I remember I went in 2012. I got to meet Kai Green. I lined up for 2 hours and took a picture with him. And then in 2013, Sean Roden was guest posing as well. And they like, I mean, like that was what the RBBF bought. It had that prestige of the
And
pros. It was sick.
It's a pity. It's a pity that's not like that anymore, man. It's a pity.
Like the thing is, it's like the IFBB elite side of things. It is competitive. Like the guys are good. It's just there's no kind of like overall definition of what's the best show there to do. I think they have the worlds and stuff, but it's just the one guy who's really good. That Michael Crizzo fella. He's just winning everything.
Yeah.
He's a freak.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard for these federations. Like, there's obviously, there's all these two bro shows now, and there's different, I know there was all the different pros. Cuba had a show, and Meg had a show there like last week, and then Ryan Terry had a show then. He had a show a couple of weeks ago. I think Wardy done. So like all these other pros are bringing out their own shows in the UK, and there's all these options now. So like back for us, there was. Well, obviously, you're talking back in 2012. You had the choice of NABA or you had the choice of RIBBF. But now you can go into the UK and enter any of these shows,
Yeah. I mean, that's what I liked about the PCA. You see, I was kind of like, you can kind of just do whatever show you want. And they actually qualify you to go to the finals based on if they think you'll do well there as well. So obviously, you can't come like seventh. And they won't let you go. But if you're top five and they think the overall top five is good enough, they'll give you the qualification. But if the top two is only good enough, they'll only give the top two. So they won't give people who aren't deserving like the qualifications. But then there is also the appeal. I tell people this, like do as much amateur shows as you can, get the experience, see what the different feds are like. And then when you feel like if you're really good enough to like turn pro, like it'll happen. Like I mean that's how it is.
Yeah.
I'm not delusional. I always tell people this. I remember when I was 18, I was like, I'm gonna be pro by the age of 25. Like slightly delusional, didn't happen. But you have to set.
There's definitely nothing wrong with think. You have to aim high, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think the irony is, right, it's because there's more shows and there's more chances to prove yourself and get that experience. Whereas back then there was only a few avenues um, you can get that. You can pay your dues a bit more and see what works. Like, especially with like, I'll tell you this: at the PCA finals, there was a lot of IFBB pros there. They had teams. Like, I mean, you had Cuba's team. You had Jamie the Giant. Like, he had a few athletes. Ant Bales was there. Um, Jesus, there was a few names there, and like they all support. Like, it was crazy. The UK scene, man. If you ever get a chance to go to the UK and do a show, do it, because it's nuts. Like, I've done two, and the first time I was on my own, I traveled 14 hours on the trains and boat to get there, and I was just like, I was water loading, so I was carrying around 88 liters of water this whole time. And I remember I met Declan Clear, and he helped me with that, just the peak. But even though like that was rough, I remember at the show it was just crazy experience. Like, it was in Birmingham, so the gyms had all teams. You had like all the different gym teams, like Monasterevin, times like 20. There was like 20 gym teams there. Ireland
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
have that. Ireland needs that, I think. Like, we need to be a bit
yeah.
more supportive of the athletes, like people. I remember there's a lot of shade thrown around, like, but there is a lot of people saying that they're gonna turn pro, but they haven't, like, and they maybe won like a class here, and they're saying they're gonna turn pro. I'm like, don't say anything, just do it. If you really believe it, uh, just do it and prove them wrong. But like, there's social media lets a lot of people talk. That's my problem with it. Like, doesn't go to the stage. Like, the stage doesn't get affected by Instagram. So
Yeah, yeah. Look, there's definitely, look, we're not going to name names, but there's loads of guys that are guilty of talking shit about each other and all the rest. But I mean, that's all bullshit at the end of the day, man. And like you said, it comes down to who looks best on stage at the end of the day.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I fully agree with the supporting the athletes' point of view. Yeah. But it's hard to support athletes without funding, man. So, these federations are struggling. They need funding too. So, like, I mean, I know this year for the Europeans, all the athletes had to fund themselves, because there was no nationals and stuff. So it's tough, like, man, it's tough. But yeah, it'd be nice to see. It'd be nice to see kind of more structure going forward in the federations, and to promote athletes, and to actually, I suppose, it'd be great to see strong teams going to the Europeans. Not that this team that didn't go there wasn't a strong team. They were. They done really well. But I mean, like, so say Igor was the only one out of the 2019 nationals winners to go. I mean, every year they should be taking the winners and backing them and bringing them in to Spain or wherever, and making sure that the best possible team is there. And I know I'm not saying that because I was one of those winners, but I just think in general, it'd be good to see strong teams, and like there's good bodybuilders in this country. And whether to be, I'm not even talking about RIBBF now, but also I think we could be doing a lot better than we are.
No, I agree 100%. I think it'll grow, man. I think bodybuilding goes through phases. Okay, like, I mean, you're gonna get years where people, you know, some shows are packed, some aren't. That's how it is. It's always been that way. Um, but I think it's a sign that guys are taking time off to improve. So I think hopefully 2022
Yeah.
2022 will be a really good season. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. COVID certainly has played a big part. COVID is certainly going to have effect on it. But look, as we're talking here, Owen, I mean, you're on doing this podcast, trying to promote Irish bodybuilding, and it's great, man. And it'd be great to see, people getting behind that, or other people doing other things similar to try and promote it, because it needs it, It needs it.
So you came up after the days of. No, you were right there, man. Actually, or no, you would have been.
Yeah,
right.
we used to have
Irish Muscle and Blunt Force.
Yeah, Irish Muscle, and there used to be a brute force or brunt force, Cav, and I know Ian McGarry was involved at one stage, yeah. But I'm not. What was it called? Brute force.
It was non-force, man. It was good.
Yeah,
They had like forums. They had vlogs. Like they literally would film people. They would do like day in the life things.
yeah. That's when I remember back in the day there was the Iron House, and there was the videos of Larry Doyle and Brian Hickey training in Iron House and stuff, and that's what I came into, and that's when I fell in love with it all. Like, that's how cool. Like it was so cool then, and it's just a pity that, I mean, it's a pity that it's sort of changed a little bit from then.
Yeah, I think that's a good side of it though. I mean, like people are free to promote themselves. It's just a case of do they want to like I mean, I'm in a position now where I don't really need to. It's like I'll be working, so it's like financially I don't need to promote myself as a bodybuilder because it's a hobby. But there's like I mean, I tell Shane this all the time. Like Shane could make some serious bank off the pro bodybuilding because he's a pro. If he just promoted himself a bit better, but he just doesn't promote himself at all. Like he's a really good bodybuilder, but he's so bad with social media. Me and him, I laugh about it because I had him on the podcast, and that was the first thing he said. But like, if he was doing like posing seminars, like we could promote
Absolutely.
shit out of it. And but again, he doesn't have to because he has a full-time income and he's perfectly happy with that. So it's like there's two trains of thoughts, but yeah, man. I mean, look, I'm looking forward to seeing what people do. And I suppose before we go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Like anything you want to say before we finish up?
No, just thanks for having me on, Owen. And I mean, as a bodybuilder and as an Irish bodybuilder, a fan of Irish bodybuilding. Sorry, the dog's barking here in the background. Chase. I just want to keep doing what you're doing, man. And doesn't matter what anyone says, you're probably the only one out there doing it right now. So massive respect, man. Seriously. And yeah, I don't know who do I want to shout out. Shout out to Conor Magee. If anyone has been watching, his comeback is insane. And he will be back very shortly. And yeah, shout out to Shane Cullen. A big shout out and big thanks to Shane Cullen. I've been blessed to be kind of training through most of the lockdown in Shane's home gym, and I'm really appreciative to him for the hospitality and letting me train with him. And we've had some serious sessions. Shane is competing at the UK, the Arnold Classic in the UK, in about 20 weeks, and he's already looking insane. So that's going to be very exciting because I think Vinny and Shane are both doing that show. So it'll be definitely something to look forward to as regards Irish bodybuilding come October.
Yeah, I kind of want to go over for it. It'll be on my birthday. So I was like, I want to go over and watch it if I can, but we'll see what happens, See.
And then lastly, I'm going to shout out my other half who's upstairs, Ali, because without her like this, her supporting me, I probably wouldn't be doing any of this. You know what I mean? Because if she has to put up with a lot, man. So, and anyone's partners and wives or whatever, they have to put up with a lot of stuff, a lot of shit, man. So shout out to all the partners and the wives who go along this with us,
Deadly. Of course, man. And you're training, you're still, man, when Monasterevin opens up, you'll be going back there full time in the seal.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be relocated to Athlone, so I'll be in Monasterevin.
I'm moving out to Mullingar to manage the gym. So
cool.
I'll only be within a 40-minute drive. So it's like I know there's a few good gyms in Athlone. Like there's one hardcore gym out there, I think. I could be wrong.
Well, if there is, Owen, let me know what it is because I'm going to be in Monasterevin some days, but I'll definitely have to have a kind of a base here in Athlone to be able to get some sessions in. So if there's anyone out there from the Midlands and has any info on any good gyms in Athlone, definitely hit me up.
Deadly man. Well, look, thanks for coming on, and that was us.